assets to the Middle East. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
We will stand with Israel in their self-defense.
Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh earlier today after Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with his Israeli counterpart. Now the Pentagon says it will move a fighter jet squadron to the Middle East and will maintain an aircraft carrier in the region. Secretary Austin has also ordered additional ballistic missile defense-capable cruisers and a destroyer to both the European and Middle East regions. This coming after the assassinations of top Hamas and Hezbollah leaders this week, prompting threats from Iran. The Justice Department suing TikTok, claiming it violates children's privacy laws.
The lawsuit accuses TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance with widespread violations of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, allowing kids under the age of 13 to sign up and view and create content without their parents' consent, and with unlawfully collecting and retaining children's email addresses and other personal information. That would be a violation of a 2019 consent decree in which TikTok agreed to stop collecting data from children and delete information it already had. In April, President Biden signed a law requiring ByteDance to sell TikTok to an American company within a year or be banned in the U.S.
Fox's Jack Callahan. A group of 21 states and more than 50 lawmakers led by the state attorneys general of Montana and Virginia have filed court papers in support of that law. People who live in Florida being told to prepare as a tropical system inches its way closer.
It's right now over Cuba. The low-level and mid-level circulation hasn't aligned, but it will once it moves into the Gulf. They'd extend the tropical storm warning a little further north to the southern edge of Fort Myers is Bonita Beach, all the way down towards the Everglades, Tampa, Sarasota, and so many spots along the Gulf Coast under a tropical storm watch.
Fox Weather's Steve Bender. America is listening to Fox News.
'93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Why an 18-year-old was put in handcuffs. I'm Harrison Silcox. Here's what's trending this hour. It was a case of recklessness, say police. Donnie Burgess reports on the shooting death of a 16-year-old.
The victim was hanging out with his friends Tuesday on Indy's west side. In the group was Jakari Bibbs, 18, who had a gun. Court docs say Bibbs was messing around with the gun, and the victim told him to knock it off. The gun fired, shooting the victim in the throat. Bibbs told police he thought the gun was empty and tried to stop the bleeding. Jakari Bibbs was arrested Thursday and charged with reckless homicide. Donnie Burgess, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Transportation Secretary and former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg was in Kokomo Friday, where he toured the construction site of a future electric vehicle battery manufacturing plant.
Companies are seeing this, and as they prepare for that EV future, they understand that the best way to capitalize on that future is to invest right here in America.
He says clean energy is reinvigorating manufacturing all across the Midwest. Buttigieg is also meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris over the weekend. Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson says he and wide receiver Josh Downs are really improving their chemistry.
I know the coaches want us to take a certain amount of steps to get a certain route open, but I just tell them, man, you get open, I'm going to try to find you the ball. So it's just a matter of just working that chemistry and just knowing each other.
Downs was second on the team in receiving a year ago, but didn't get much of a chance to play with Richardson last year because the quarterback missed most of the season with injuries. The Colts preseason starts on the 11th of August, regular season September 8th. On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Here's the forecast from the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
Isolated showers and storms remain possible into tonight with patchy fog developing in the overnight hours as lows drop into the upper 60s. Saturday will be very warm and humid with highs in the mid to upper 80s under lots of sunshine. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Stephen Deanna for 93 WIBC.
People are talking about Window Nation. Their Window Nation customer Vicky says, we couldn't be happier. This was a great experience. She's just one of over 33,000 5-star reviews. That's because Window Nation is all about the value. And this August, they're giving you great value during the Window Nation anniversary sale. Right now, buy 2 windows, get 2 free, plus no interest or payments for 24 months. And if you act now, you'll get an extra $250 credit.
Window Nation values your satisfaction in their quality, service, and affordability. That's why they stand behind their windows with a lifetime warranty. Window Nation was also recently ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies. So you can trust Window Nation for high-quality, affordable windows. Hurry, this big sale ends August 31st. Schedule that in-home estimate right now at 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com.
Tomorrow starts at IU Indianapolis. Our students are the engine of Indiana's future, in powerful partnership with the country's leading businesses and organizations. We prepare each student to make impacts that matter right here at home, inspiring bold endeavors and life-changing careers. Bring on tomorrow, IU Indianapolis. Discover how we're powering what's possible at go.iu.edu/tomorrow.
Hammer and Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. Learn more at helpnokidhungry.org.
Tony Katz.
It's Kendall and Casey.
The Hammer and Nigel show.
All right, when does your show start? Do we know? I feel like I've been promoting this for 9 years now.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Good evening. Welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. So while the polls between Trump and Harris continue to tighten, and yes, by the way, they are in fact tightening up. Nate Silver over at 538 shows Kamala now leading barely in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin by about 1 to 2 points. Rasmussen only has Trump up nationally by 1. And then the Real Clear polling average puts Trump up 1, about 47 to 46. Now, while polls between Trump and Harris are continuing to tighten up, the media's focus on Kamala has now drifted over from their initial extreme Yas Queen celebration to the potential vice president picks. And the four horsemen, the four choices in this particular shortlist were Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, Andy Beshear, governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and last and definitely not least, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. Now, this creates kind of an interesting split because it looks like at this point it's going to be Shapiro, and I'll tell you why in just a minute or two. But the progressives desperately want it to be Tim Walz. Why do they want it to be Tim Walz? Because, number one, progressives, like a lot of people on the populist side of the right, think that for a vice presidential candidate to just be as equally progressive or as equally populist or equally conservative as the primary candidate is an extremely important thing. That kind of driving as far as you can into the ideological leanings that you support is very, very important to those on the kind of the traditionally conservative right, as well as those on the very progressive left. And Tim Walz is a very, very, very liberal governor. And this is what the Obama bros are really, really hoping ends up coming through. So Naomi Klein, not to be confused with Ezra Klein, said that Walz would be a game-changing vice president pick. Again and again, he reads as not condescending. He's actually interested in people's lives. It's amazing the things that matter to progressives on a vice presidential ticket. He's interested in people's lives. He's like a realtor. He asks you questions and things, guys. Isn't it wonderful? And also, this is the last thing she lists, he's laser focused on substantive policies, food, health, education, the kind of things that will likely ruin those three services, that will reduce daily stress and drag us out of conspiracy land. Yes, Tim Walz, the guy who believes that New York had a massive slave market in the mid-1800s. It didn't. Anyhow, aside from that, there's the good case, the good pick for the Kamala Harris campaign. By the good pick, I mean the pick that is going to put her closest to the White House, and that is Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. He has a good approval rating there. He's popular among Democrats, and here's why. He's pro-Israel, which the majority of the country is. He is in fairly sort of middle ground on corporate tax cuts, by which I mean he's not in favor of beating the living crap out of the manufacturing industry, out of the refining industry, like, for example, steel and iron, very big for Pennsylvania, as well as kind of a middle ground approach to education. He's not totally against vouchers, even though he has kind of come out against them a little bit in the last year, as that's become kind of a bigger issue for Democrats. He's about as close to moderate as you can get. Now, he is still very in favor of some very radical things. He's in favor of some radical things regarding race discrimination, as well as the LGBTQ children thing. I don't think that a guy who believes that toddlers can transition genders is a smart or intelligent pick, but of those selected, that's the most moderate that you can find. Now, it looks at this point like that actually who is she's going with. She's going to go with Shapiro. Mayor Sherelle Parker of Philadelphia, one of her social media interns, I guess, got the 2 confused with 5 on the keyboard and accidentally scheduled a Monday video for today. And so here is a premature announcement of Josh Shapiro as the vice presidential pick for the Democrat Party.
Philadelphia, we got work to do.
We're ready to rumble, y'all!
I'm Mayor Sherelle Parker, here with leaders from across our region. Kamala Harris is on the road to victory.
And the road goes through Pennsylvania.
And in Pennsylvania, we're united behind her.
The woman that's tough and can lead.
Are we ready to fight for it?
She is the right person at the right time for this job.
It's gonna do right by labor. It's gonna do right by working people.
And I can't think of a better partner than our Governor Josh Shapiro.
Oh.
His policies are not only...
Oh. And there it is. So they've already shut off comments on this post. There really isn't much they can do at this point. Everyone kind of had assumed it anyway, even though the leak is, kind of a silly, stupid thing. Shapiro had already canceled a bunch of fundraising events this weekend. Kamala has already hinted that she would be announcing her vice presidential pick on Monday as she was traveling through the swing states. So announcing her pick in Philadelphia on Monday, where she's starting, makes sense. She's going with Shapiro. So that is a masterstroke of a campaign strategy. For the Kamala Harris campaign, that's a masterstroke. That is a brilliant move. Here's why. Kamala swings out just over 100 days from the election and announces her candidacy. It's the shortest presidential run in history, right? The media has asked her exactly 0 questions of any substance at all. And by the way, you heard in that ad, no substance at all. She's going to fight for you. How? She's going to lead us forward. How? She's got great plans. Can you list one of them? There's none of those questions out there. In fact, by the way, I will point out that even when Kamala is in the position where people are normally asked questions, she says nothing at all and just runs away.
Thank you all. Madam Vice President, will you be meeting Evan and Paul when they return?
There she goes. Oh, you just missed her. None of the media are asking her any questions at all. And the media are starting to be asked about this, but it's a bit too late for that, at least at this point, because now that she's had the surge of her initial campaign with no substantive questions, which means nothing major that has stuck to her character in the eyes of the voter to diminish the excitement of Democrats to come out and vote for her, now we're on to the major boost that she's going to get for Governor Josh Shapiro. What this says is that Kamala Harris' campaign, not Kamala, but the campaign, is extremely, extremely disciplined right now. Josh Shapiro is not who Kamala wants to pick. Kamala would much rather have someone progressive given her stance on Israel and Hamas. But she is going to pick Shapiro because that's who is going to give her the best chance at winning the Rust Belt states. And again, with them being Harris and Trump neck and neck in that situation, that's not a good thing. So the Trump campaign was very disciplined against Joe Biden. And since Trump's attempted assassination, and since Biden dropping out, the campaign has gotten very lax and not disciplined at all. Now, the truth of the matter is Trump has gone off script since the assassination attempt, which I'm not saying that that's how dare he do so. I'm making an objective statement that Trump going off script and being less disciplined than he has hurt him. And I don't mean it's hurt him as in his supporters aren't supporting him anymore. I mean him taking a week and going after Kamala on things that are not going to make a lot of difference to Democrat voters, that has given her more to stand on when she throws these nonsensical passive-aggressive punches to rally her base. So that brings us to the soft targets for Kamala, because now we're just now starting to see the Trump campaign actually kind of stepping forward and swinging punches in the right places, because Kamala has more soft targets than any Democrat presidential candidate in history. She is an extremely progressive candidate. It's extremely easy to throw punches at her. She cannot speak when she is in front of a crowd. There's a reason she's not answering actual questions. The very first question Kamala was asked was about the prisoner exchange, in which the United States coughed up a bunch of murderers, hackers, spies, and terrorists to Russia in exchange for American citizens. This is what Kamala had to say about it.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy.
What? It's great to have diplomacy and a president who thinks diplomacy is diplomacy. She can't speak. And in addition to that, she's flip-flopped on all of these major policy positions. No one has asked her any questions about it. No one has really driven home substantive policy. When Trump gets up at rallies, he mostly focuses on illegal immigration, and that's pretty much it. He needs to be focusing on why Kamala isn't answering questions about the policies she's flopped on, including illegal immigration. He could do this very, very easily. I used to call this the Donald Trump Jr. strategy. My original suggestion was that Donald Trump Jr., who I think delivers a better political argument than his father, should go out and do the campaigning while Trump kind of works behind the scenes and focuses on what he's going to be doing when he becomes president. Now, actually, he has J.D. Vance, who's doing a phenomenal job. Now, if J.D. Vance leads the campaign and gets Trump to start talking like this, it is going to be very difficult to take them down. So this is J.D. Vance slapping back at CNN.
Thank you all.
The former president's comments yesterday to the National Association of Black Journalists, where he said that Vice President Harris is, quote, all of a sudden black. As a father of 3 biracial children, did those comments give you pause at all?
They don't give me pause at all. Look, all he said is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She goes to Georgia 2 days ago. She was raised in Canada. She puts on a fake Southern accent. She is everything to everybody, and she pretends to be somebody different depending on which audience she's in front of. I think it's totally reasonable for the president to call that out, and that's all he did. I mean, look, she's running as a tough-on-crime prosecutor, even though she implemented open border policies. She's saying that she wants to support the police, yet she wanted to defund the police just 3 years ago. It's totally reasonable to call out the fact that she pretends to be somebody different depending on the audience she's talking to.
And that's phenomenal. That's exactly what you do. You call her a liar, and then you call her a coward for not answering questions about it. That's it. Up next, we're going to talk about the lovely recession that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are celebrating, which is very, very weird. We'll be back in a second. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal and first on 93 WIBC.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
To hear the president tell it, he was fine with running for re-election and served for 4 more years until sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning when it dawned on him, apparently, that it was time for a new generation of leaders.
History happens here.
History in the making tonight.
On your 2024 election information station.
We have a long way to November.
93 WIBC.
If you can't get a good night's sleep, let me ask you, are you breathing well? Because if you're snoring or waking up each night with a stuffed up nose, or frustrated with your CPAP mask, the root of your sleep problem lies in your breathing triangle. And if any one of those passages isn't working, you won't sleep well. And there's no mattress, pill, or other gimmick that can fix that. I'm Dr. Madan Kandula. A recipe for a good night's sleep starts with an open airway. Now, there are devices that can help solve snoring or sleep apnea problems. If you walk into a sleep center, know you'll walk out with a CPAP. And you might find other options elsewhere. But the simple truth is, if your nose doesn't work properly, no device will help. Only at Advent will you find every effective snoring and sleep apnea solution, along with a world-class team that can get your nose working properly again.
Go to adventknows.com to schedule your appointment, because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Your home is your sanctuary. Get the
peace of mind you deserve with a free estimate on a Generac automatic standby generator for your home from Generator Supercenter, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer. With expert installation and 24-hour monitoring, Generator Supercenter won't leave you in the dark. Financing is available. Take control of your power today with Generator Supercenter. Call 317-827-0808. Generator Supercenter of Indianapolis, 317-827-0808.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
Hey, it's Big Joe for your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, Reinhardt Heating and Cooling. Owner Danny Reinhardt's son Kevin says one simple saying from his dad affects him every day at work.
Especially when you go out and do sales and service calls and collect money and do all this stuff. It's important to a lot of people. He always said the #1 thing I remember from him is just fair and honest wins every time.
You can trust Reinhardt Heating and Cooling, 317-745-4526. Reinhardt Heating and Cooling is your trusted local independent American Standard dealer.
Aren't you worried Max might run off? He's safe. We installed invisible fence. See a special collar? So he can roam freely but won't leave the yard? Exactly. And it was so easy. Invisible fence installed everything and even sent out an expert to train Max. I need invisible fence for Roxy.
Go to invisiblefence.com to get started today, absolutely risk-free. Give your pet freedom and safety. Go to invisiblefence.com right now and schedule your free consultation. Go to invisiblefence.com. That's invisiblefence.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online at hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation to determine the ED medication that's best for you. Discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and a range of treatment options, including trusted generic alternatives to the name brands, at up to 95% off. ED is personal, and at Hims, so is treating it. Just go to hims.com/joy and get connected to a licensed medical provider online for free, with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit, hims.com/joy.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This hour on WIBC is powered by Pierce Jewelers, designers of fine custom jewelry.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
When you've got big news, you bring on the big hitters. When you've got home run news, you bring on the home run hitters. And that's what we've got for you this beautiful Friday evening here on the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated now and first on 93 WIBC. And of course, I'm talking about Gabriella Hoffman, the Independent Women's Forum's director for their Center of Energy and Conservation. She's a CFACT policy analyst and host. And when it comes to smashing just the bloat and administrative garbage of our bureaucracy, there are very few who can do that better than she can. Gabby, good evening.
That's a very kind thing for you to say. Yes, I dislike the bloated bureaucracy. But yeah, it's been a while since we chatted, so happy to deconstruct some of the latest trends and news topics with you.
Now, normally we dig into energy policy, and people think that energy policy affects things like, well, whether or not there's going to be enough energy at this particular cost, and whether or not this is going to provide these detriments or benefits to the local groups. but the policies of the Department of Energy, as well as the Department of Transportation regarding their, again, new requirements and things, they're scaring the crap out of a lot of people regarding new jobs and development of our employment economy. And this has now come out today. We have job growth totals for June and July. So revision for June, new numbers for July. Job growth in July was only 114,000 in a presidential election year, and unemployment is up to 4.3%. I mean, I don't even have a question for you. Just good God.
I believe you may have predicted these numbers, a little bird told me, but it's not surprising to see this attrition and kind of this continual disappointing numbers. And they usually are adjusted after they're published. There's been month after month of adjusting these numbers. And if we're talking about, let's say, my set of issues that I deal with, they are really trying to say that the government has an outsized role in clean energy production, and it's the same for even non-energy related jobs. They're talking about non-farm jobs here. So the Biden administration, including in energy space, in the energy sector, they want the federal government, not the private sector, to have an outsized influence in job creation. So the federal government, as we understand, is not supposed to be creating jobs. They're supposed to be creating a climate that invites job creation. Let the job creators, run and do what they do best and employ people, provide, livelihoods for folks. But now the government is trying to come in under this administration and say, we're going to be taking care of you. We're going to be picking, however, winners and losers, people we like, industries we prefer. And that is why you're seeing this continual disappointing and depressing numbers coming from the jobs market and this increase in unemployment, because the government is having an outsized role and trying to pick winners and losers.
Now, this picking the winners and losers has finally, thank God, started to upset the major corporations that were playing the fife along to this marching tune. And you have two recent articles that are very, very important regarding the, let's say, the beginning backlash from the larger part of the corporate sector against these demands. So on August 18th, you published an article about Google backpedaling on carbon neutrality, starting to kind of push back against that. And now on August the 1st, that being yesterday, you published an environmental piece about the first major airline in the world, this being Air New Zealand, I believe, right, who is ditching its climate target. So are we starting to see the corporate sector around the world starting to come away from this subsidized governmental garbage?
I believe we are. It's a slow but steady trend, but I would say with respect to the tech companies, because they're really going big into data centers. Mm-hmm. And I know as conservatives, we haven't really formulated a strong opinion on data centers. But if we were, let's say, to give data centers deference and do here, it would make sense if they're going to be coming online. They're inevitable. I'm not saying that's what I personally feel, but if we're going to entertain a hypothetical, if they're supposed to come online, they require a lot of energy. Largely natural gas. The natural gas is going to be a large component behind powering these AI-powered data centers. A lot of them are coming here to Virginia. I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, the most data centers so far. Texas is number 2 after us. So they may be inevitable, and these tech companies are realizing these net zero aims and directives we have signed on to, pledged, they're not going to work for our goals to set up these data centers that are going to be powered by AI. So they're coming to terms and butting heads with their environmentalist buddies or those that they have worked with to say we're pledging to go net zero, and saying it's not feasible anymore. And maybe we didn't need to set these benchmarks, because you're only going to, as we've talked about before, Tony, and everyone is starting to recognize this, if you're according yourself with the Paris Climate Accords, which is where these net zero directives are, to reduce global temperatures by 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050 or whatever arbitrary deadline. At best, if you're lucky, if we were to follow this rubric, you'd only reduce temperatures by 0.2 of a Celsius degree, all the while wrecking the economy. So maybe these corporations, I'm hoping they're starting to say that this is going to wreck our bottom line. We're not going to reduce emissions as much as it was forecasted. We should have more reasonable targets and goals, or maybe we shouldn't really weigh in on this, because we will, let's say for the airlines, Air New Zealand and others have said, we will never meet net zero targets ever, yet they still are clinging to it. But as I predicted, I think we're going to see more, and especially the domestic airlines, perhaps peel back on their commitments. If Air New Zealand is going to be the first, I expect we see American ones to follow. And they've been bailed out so many times by the federal government. So they really shouldn't be doing this.
Right. So digging back to the tech energy needs, this is something that we don't talk about enough. I mean, you talk about it quite extensively, but when you take a look at some of the data from digital infrastructure, data centers in the United States primarily being located in Nova, Northern Virginia, of course, where you are, Phoenix, Dallas, Atlanta, Chicago, NoCal, Silicon Valley, Hillsboro, Oregon, New York, Jersey, Seattle, and also Quincy, Washington. And then, of course, everyone's favorite brownout capital of the world, Los Angeles. So if we're taking a look at those energy needs, and really bipartisanly, there's been a desire to move both tech manufacturing and data collection and division to the United States instead of to the slave labor capitals of China, of Indonesia, of northern India, then we need to start considering how we're going to provide the energy for those infrastructural demands. Because, and I think you've hit on this more than anyone, yeah, sure, we can try to set up all of this green infrastructure that's not going to solve it, not going to meet their demands. Well, then those companies are just going to go where the energy is a surplus, and that means something far worse for the environment than a natural gas-based infrastructure in the United States would be.
Right, and that's why you saw this week the Senate cleared the passage of an actual bipartisan permitting reform bill. It doesn't go as far enough as some that I talked to claim it should go far enough, but I think it's a good start.
It is a great start.
And it actually includes even some provisions for conventional energy too. And I also loved the mention so far in my reading of it, the geothermal, the hydropower were appropriate, even the nuclear components in addressing, and also just making sure that review of projects does not take years upon end. I think the provision or recommendation is to put it down to 150 days at most. So if you have these needs, let's say data centers become critical infrastructure projects or deemed that, or any type of energy project, nuclear, as we talked about before, right, or have had private conversations about, nuclear is currently facing regulatory red tape. And permitting reform and other reforms that were passed under, let's say, the Advance Act could help unleash nuclear. Nuclear can meet a lot of these demands, whether it's electricity production, and also all the while not destroying a lot of land or overwhelming the grid, but really meeting natural gas and nuclear. It's the consensus, what we're seeing now. Those two sources, and then, of course, I think the conventional reliable stuff like oil and gas too, but largely nat gas and nuclear are going to be fulfilling the need of this high electricity demand that we keep seeing people making forecasts over. Fulfill most of your needs, if not all needs.
I think that's very well said. Gabriella Hoffman, the Independent Women's Forum Director for their Center for Energy and Conservation. Always a blast having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
We'll be back in just a second. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal and 93 WIBC.
We all know how high mortgage rates are right now. Because of that, most homeowners are staying put, investing into and preserving the home they have. If you're ignoring any cracks or leaks seen within your home's interior or exterior walls, nasty smells, mold, or mildew in your crawl space, sticking doors or windows, heightened or worsening allergies and asthma, even while you're indoors, pests or bugs popping up, water in the basement, uneven, sagging, or bouncing floors, or drainage issues, don't wait any longer to have Indiana Foundation Service come out for a free inspection and no obligation quote. Indiana Foundation Service knows these signs lead to irreversible damage that could cause a reduction in your home's value. The experts at Indiana Foundation Service will identify your home's issue at the source. Visit IndianaFoundation.com today to book your free inspection with a no obligation quote included. Indiana Foundation Service. There's a reason they are the local trusted experts.
Indiana Foundation Service. Reliability from the ground up.
Hey, it's Rob. If you want to grow your hair back, check out the precision and accuracy of the Artist Robotic FUE at We Grow Hair Indie. You'll be amazed at the permanent natural results you can get and get back to work ASAP. Darren Andrews, Clinic Director of We Grow Hair Indie, is here to tell us more.
The Artist Robotic FUE hair transplant at We Grow Hair Indie, one of the most sophisticated hair transplant procedures available. The accuracy and the precision of the Artist Robotic FUE is what clients love the most. Get the results you want with our Artist FUE or multi-unit hair grafting procedure.
Don't wait. Call today and find out more about the Artist Robotic FUE at WeGrowHairIndie.com. Call 317-522-2995 for your hair evaluation. 317-522-2995 or go to WeGrowHairIndie.com. and grow your hair back today.
Hi, this is Denny Smith, and I don't think folks really appreciate just how bad indoor air quality is this time of year. Between the pollen and dirt, dander, and who knows what else, it takes a professional to clean them out of your ductwork and your carpets. How about having Zero Res help you take on all of that with a great August special? Get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $119 and take 20% off their duct cleaning services too. For the record, this isn't your normal cleaning of ductwork and carpets. The new H2 HyperVac truck is Zero Res's amazingly efficient tool to clean your ducts effectively. And after cleaning the ductwork, don't forget to clean the largest air filter in your home, your carpets, with the ZR Water Difference. No soap, no residue, no harsh chemicals, leaving things really clean. Now mention WIBC and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting at $119, plus you get 20% off their very effective duct cleaning. Call 317-388-5141. Book online at zeroresindy.com.
Garage door problems? Call today for service today. Garage Doors of Indianapolis services all makes of garage doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call today for service today. 875-4577. Call today for service today. Get it fixed right now. Call Garage Doors of Indianapolis at 875-4577 or visit doorstoday.com.
In the morning, call 875-4577.
Service today.
Today.
Inside Indiana Business Radio, the news you need to get ahead. Indiana's business news leader, weekdays at 6:32 a.m. and 5:56 p.m. on WIBC.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
The Indianapolis Public Library. More than just books. Visit your local branch today.
Overcoming drug addiction is difficult. The road to recovery is different for everyone. Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Hey, welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, and first on 93 WIBC out of Indianapolis. Like many of you, I choose to endure the suffering of this hectic news cycle by endlessly scrolling through Instagram reels. And there are a lot of good reels. There's a lot of trash. And then there are guys who take what appear to be trash and create some of the best stuff out there. And of course, I'm talking about Jake Cochran. If you haven't seen his stuff over at Freshly Jaked, you're missing out, because this guy doesn't just say, man, it'd be really nice to go into a ton of debt buying a new trailer or a new deck or a new cabin. It's another thing to build it yourself. Jake, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course, Tony. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell me, what gave you the idea to start just taking a bunch of the scrap materials and things lying around and actually start turning them into, instead of just small side projects, some of these larger scale things that you've been up to?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I think ultimately it comes from just like necessity and interest, I guess. I've been into like natural building structures and stuff like that for a long time. And I've never really had a lot of money to put into them. So it just seemed kind of like the logical thing to just take whatever I could find and try to make it work. And I got kind of tired of doing smaller stuff. So I was like, let's just push it a little bit and see what we can do.
So one of the bits of the videos that we're going to show here in a second is from my personal favorite. And my brother-in-law gave me a rusty old yard trailer for a lawnmower. And I thought about redoing it several times, and I just kind of lost all hope. So it's sitting out in a corner of my yard. And then I came across this video.
Oh, geez, I need more pallets for my cabin build, but I can't fit very many on my dirtbag lumber rack. Coming in hot. Whoops. How to fix a rusty trailer when you're poor as still need to move lumber for your dirtbag cabin build. First, we gotta clean off all this age. Ooh. For that, we're gonna use these things. This is gonna take longer than I thought.
I thought, man, you mean I could have just gotten something and just put in a little bit of elbow grease? It makes sense. We all have kind of thought about it before, but to see a guy articulate the thoughts that just run through dudes' heads and just actually turn it into something in the yard, man, it's fantastic. I mean, so the trailer project, is it finished yet?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it's about as finished as it's going to be for sure. Yeah, we got the deck on it. The deck is holding up. The pallet boards can be a little squirrely, so sometimes you got to get in there and and change them out. But yeah, she's rolling for sure. So.
And you don't hide the frustration behind a lot of these DIY projects, because I see like the kind, and again, not to throw shade at other creators, but they'll kind of go from the start to the finish, and what you see is they speed up the footage and it's just this lightning fast build, and you come away kind of intimidated because, oh man, I can never do that. You know, I'm the 15th trip to Home Depot today kind of guy because I got the measurements wrong. You don't spare the frustration. I mean, there's a funny aspect to that because it is pretty hilarious, but there's a realism to that too that I think is more likely to inspire people to stick through some of these projects.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I hope for too. I mean, I think I have this like thing that I tell people when anytime I build something, I go through like all the stages of emotional experience, you know, where I'm like, it's jubilant, I'm loving it, it's great. And then I'm like in the depths, like I'm the worst person ever. I suck at everything. I'll never do anything right. And then it's like coming out of that place is what feels really good, you know, and what gives you that like long release dopamine and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of hope that people see what I'm doing and they're like, oh yeah, I could do that. Like that's, you know, we could figure it out. Like, let's just see what happens.
So when you're doing a low budget project and there are tools that you have to go out and get, right? And we've talked a little bit about this before the show. There are some tools that you get that you weren't expecting to be phenomenal that just hit it out of the park. And to this day, you're like, thank God I have this. And then there are other tools that you think, man, that's going to be awesome. And again, it's a limited budget. So every tool you buy is very important. What are the tools that maybe you've bought that have just like sucked up a storm, like a big disappointment? Are there any of those that if you could go back, you would throw it 300 yards and never look back?
Definitely that sandblaster that I use in the trailer video. Yeah. And no offense to Harbor Freight. I go there for a lot of stuff, but that thing just was not working. I don't know. I spent a lot of time researching sandblasting, trying to figure out how to do it and not, you know, die or mess it up or whatever. And I bought that thing and like, I was just so disappointed. It was so bad. And I was like, well, that was all the way. I'm just going to go back to what I was doing, which is sanding this thing and friggin' paint it and just not worry about it. So yeah, that's probably one of my biggest sad moments in a while from a tool, I would say. Yeah.
Any like underrated like hyper performers out there like that you found this tool and you're like, oh heck yeah, this thing's going with me everywhere from now on?
Okay, this is weird, but yeah, so one of my favorite hand tools is like just an old crappy pair of like channel locks, or like they're like the pliers that extend and open. I don't know why I bought them. I bought them years ago, but I still have the same pair and they just have done work for me. Like, you know, plumbing, car work, like you can do so much with a pair of pliers like that. And they were like, you know, 99 cents or something like that.
I think you find that a tool
the table saw that I got on Facebook Marketplace has been just like the best part of my life for a while. That's been.
Oh, don't you love that? There's nothing better than coming across a find and you're like, oh, they're selling it. So it's probably going to be a piece of junk. And also it's probably not going to run right. I'm going to have to plug like a car battery and a duck into it to actually get it to function. And then you get in, it works, and you're like, where has this been all my life? I do think it's funny. You can kind of tell when a tool has made it out of just a nice tool to have to being one of your favorite tools when you find yourself using it for a bunch of stuff it wasn't intended for. Like I have an old ball peen hammer that my dad gave me ages ago. And I love how that thing feels so much. I tell you what, I could almost drive screws with a ball peen hammer if I really wanted to hard enough, man. That's like the dream, you know?
Yeah, totally.
What have you found that it's got the lowest chance you're going to be able to use that a second or a third time?
You mean stuff that's like hard to make?
Yeah. Like if you see this kind of screw in a pallet, you're like, oh, dude, I bet almost all those screws are going to go in the trash, or, you know, it would probably be better just to get a cheap bag of these or whatever. Anything that just has a low rate of, you know, because we have a lot of people that listen to the show that do some scrapping here and there. Anything that just kind of know that it's not really going to be good for reusing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with the pallet stuff in particular, the nails are hard to reuse. Like, they're not impossible, but a lot of times when I'm popping them out, they come out bent, they come out torqued, or you'll go and you'll use them and they're so old they'll just snap right in half. So I typically just buy nails because they're cheap anyway. That's really easy to do. Right. But I have used the pallet nails for like low issue projects that don't require a lot of structural integrity, I guess.
I respect that, because there are a lot of creators that are so hell-bent on trying to impress everyone with how resourceful they are that they will show you this 800-step process to like restore pallet nails. And dude, no offense, I love the dedication and the skill and the machinery you have to restore pallet nails, but I don't know. You're reusing the pallet wood, but also you're not like, we're going to reuse every scrap of material on this lot because we have to. Again, kind of a realism thing for me. I'm not just trying to bring you on to like kiss your ear or anything. I love content like this because it's so unlike some of the stuff that we're seeing these days.
Yeah, and I just feel like a lot of what I focus on is just like getting the job done to a point. Like that's kind of my center, right? And so what that looks like to me, like I want to build a cabin. Okay, how can I get that done? I'm going to reuse this like material that I have ample supply of, right? But I also want to do that as efficiently as I can because it's just me and I don't want to, be doing this for 2 years like this one project. So there are certain things I think where it's worth just spending a little bit of money or just like finding, just going with the easy route, I guess, at the end of the day,
So when you're making that kind of decision, I sometimes suffer from eyes are bigger than my stomach syndrome. And I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, dude, I could build that. I could make that. And even worse, I tell my wife I could make that, which is a mistake. Are there any big projects that you've kind of thought, oh, man, that's the thing? And then you've just kind of abandoned because like, oh, dear God, that was maybe that's not possible right now.
Yeah, as far as ones that I've abandoned, that's a little harder, like for me to remember right now.
Maybe not abandoned. Maybe like you were like, oh, that's a good idea, and then maybe you had some second thoughts.
I mean, 100%. Yeah, I used to be that guy that would drive by stuff, anything free on the road that I could find, and throw it in the back of my car and take it home. And what that ended up looking like was I had a house full of garbage, just stuff, And then when it came time to move out of that rental property, I had to move all that stuff or get rid of all that stuff.
No.
And it was awful. And I remember that. And I was like, okay, we're never going to do that again. So now I'm very intentional about what I take on. But one of the last big projects that I did was like a camper van, back a few years ago. I was really into like living in a small space. And so I took it on. I paid $6,000, I think, for the van itself. And it was one of these Sprinters. So that was like bottom tier, like lowest price you could get, right? And it turned out to need a new engine and need all this work done to it. And so I just ended up with this thing and I was like, well, what do we do now? Like I spent my life savings on this, basically this idea. And that one took me like, I think almost 3.5-4 years to get done to the point that I could like, move on basically. So that was a big deal.
No, I think that finally getting done with that kind of stuff, that the sense of relief. And then I find myself wondering, well, what's the next thing I'm going to drag myself into? Jake Cochran, he's freshly jaked over on Instagram. Of course, we'll link his stuff here. You should go follow his content, and you probably shouldn't go get a Harbor Freight sandblaster, at least not right now. Let him work out a few of the bugs. Jake, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
We'll be back in just a second. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal and first on 93 WIBC.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this, 96% of Americans, 96% forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because, unfortunately, they file for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you can avoid this with a free customized Social Security analysis. It's from Bill Demery, your retirement guy right here in Indy.
So if you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not yet filed for Social Security, schedule that free analysis right now by calling Bill Demery, 317-648-5120. Bill Demery. For some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. The free analysis pinpoints exactly how you could get the most income from Social Security. Bill Demery, 317-648-5120. That's 317-648-5120.
Do gurgling pipes, running toilets keep you up at night? Become a member at Hope Plumbing and have the comfort of knowing you have a plumber on call. For only $8 a month, you get your own plumber on call, a 10% discount on all plumbing services, one free mainline cleaning, one plumbing safety inspection, all trip charges waived, and so much more. Being their friend has its benefits. Give Hope Plumbing a call, hopeplumbing.com.
Hey, John, why so glum? I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this. Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career. Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
A house or business fire is something you never want to think of. But should it happen, think fast. Think Michaelis. Over 35 years of rebuilding lives and spirits at the same time. No one comes more respected or as fast. Trust the ones the insurance companies trust. Water, storms, fire, and wet basements. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-INDY. Make it Michaelis.
T. Brian Hayes here from the Retirement Money Matters Show. It's back to school time, but back to school time is not just for kids anymore, especially this year. With so many changes each and every year in the retirement planning arena, you simply have to make sure you go back to school to keep informed. Join me this weekend as we educate you on the many changes in the retirement planning arena lately and help you adapt properly. In addition, we will inform you about some retirement planning deadlines that are fast approaching. The Retirement Money Matters Show airs this Saturday morning at 6 a.m. right here on WIBC.
90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. Be a responsible gun owner. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Closing time.
I like that, Allison. I like the weekend song now in the third segment and the closing time on the final Friday. That really works for me. I like that. That's a good call. So Friday, we try to get through a little bit of mail time. A lot of questions are starting to come in. Far more than I'm kind of used to since the Daily Signal has started syndicating the show. So we'll try to get through as many as we can. It is time for a little... All right, up for the first question here. This is from a guy named Johns. He said, I'm recently married, and my wife and I are starting to get into the little arguments. So what is, I think I'm reading this right, what is the biggest flaw that your wife sees in you? I can answer this one very easily right off the bat. I eat kiwi whole. I don't peel kiwi. I eat them whole. And if that horrifies you, if that terrifies you, well, it also horrifies and terrifies my wife. So if you're out there and you haven't eaten a kiwi whole, you can start by getting some of the golden kiwi. I don't know why I'm giving this advice. It's just better that way. It's not terrible at all. There's a lot of vitamins, and I love kiwi. It's one of my favorite fruits. And I mean, I don't eat like the part near the stem, but like, yes, I do eat the peel as well, and that bothers her to no end. This is a question from the chat today. It's from Mark. He asks, what time each day do you start writing the show? And the answer is 5 p.m. 5 p.m., I do a lot of my investigative column work in the day, maybe an interview if we need to pre-record something. And then I start writing about 5 p.m. That's when I figure that if there's anything extremely breaking, LOL, it's probably not going to break between then and the end of the show. Now, that also that's not really that's really probably my worst theory. But I try to keep the stuff fresh because one of the reasons I started doing the show is because a lot of the evening shows that I'd watched, or evening shows that you tuned into the following morning on your way to work, the news was so old that it's like, I've paid attention to politics since the last time I looked at this, and all this is way out of date. So I try to kind of, keep away from that. This next one is from Kaminzi. What's the most valuable skill from both your time in classroom teaching and now in journalism? The answer is saying I don't know when I don't know something. There's this weird idea that if you say I don't know, everyone will think that you're stupid and that you're unintelligent and that you are not worth having a conversation with. I very much disagree. Saying I don't know saves me from doing something later called making a retraction. If I make a guess and I don't say it is a guess, or if I make a prediction, I don't say it's a prediction, and then I'm wrong, you look a lot dumber than if you would just say I don't know. And so I think that's the best skill that I've tried to foster. When I had students that asked me questions, I didn't know the answer as a science teacher, they'd ask some like weird off the wall thing. I'd just say, I don't know. Want to go look it up? And then we'd look it up. I think I've done that on the show once where I didn't know the answer and then I actually looked it up on the air because I was really curious. I also have producer Lou and Allison who are ready in the wings if I say I don't know to give me the answer in a quick direct message. But you're not really supposed to know that, so forget you heard that. This last one is a little spicier than usual. They say, I'm not going to name them because they're a little bit grumpy here. They say, I've heard you make the claim that there is no such thing as unbiased journalism. It's true. I work at a regional newspaper and I report objective facts. Then our editors make sure nothing else in the article is biased before we publish it. Under the circumstances, how is reporting on the minutes from a school board meeting, for example, always biased? All journalism is biased. Every single thing, from reporting straight news to analysis to commentary, all of it is biased. And here's why. You choose, as a journalist, what stories to write. You do. Or your editor chooses what stories to write. You have a value system that chooses what you think is newsworthy. And I'll make an example. The news director over at Fox 59 has purposely told several members in the newsroom that certain things are not worthy of news stories. I've known that for years. So when you choose what does and doesn't make news, that's you editorializing, even if you only report the objective facts. And the same with the minutes in a school board meeting. Unless you're just posting the transcript from the school board meeting, you have to quantify and, yes, editorialize what you think are good summaries of what was done in the school board meeting. This is where the Indianapolis Star runs into serious problems, and even worse, the Columbus Dispatch and the Minneapolis Star Tribune. This is something that the newspaper down in Arkansas, forget me, I can't remember the name, down in Little Rock, they actually do really well, is that they try to frame things with as few adjectives as possible. This is why, for me, I try to be very open about my bias, so then you know what is opinion and hopefully what's fact. That about does it for this week. We'll be back on Monday. Have an excellent weekend. It's been a joy being with you on the air. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal, syndicated first to 93 WIBC.